Chicago winter mornings are unforgiving. Margaret Reynolds, known as Maggie, sipped her coffee slowly while gazing at the snow piling up on the street from her condominium window. She was dressed in a plain suit that suggested an ordinary office worker, appearing as an unremarkable woman. Her hair was practical shoulder length, and her makeup minimal. Maggie returned her gaze to the documents spread across the table. There was a knock at the door, and Maggie looked up. "Mail delivery," called Sam, the building manager. "Thank you, Sam." As she sorted through the pile of mail, a pastel blue envelope immediately caught her eye. On the back, elegant calligraphy read, "Let's celebrate Vanessa and Michael's baby." Maggie sighed. It was a baby shower invitation from her sister Vanessa. Opening the envelope and reading the contents, she saw the date was next Saturday. The location was an upscale club in Chicago's suburbs. The host was, of course, her mother Eleanor. A note in her mother's handwriting was attached to the invitation, "Please come. It's an important family day." Maggie stared out the window, tucking her hair behind her ear. Her relationship with Vanessa and Eleanor had always been complicated. From childhood, Maggie was expected to be the responsible eldest daughter, while Vanessa was pampered as the family's sunshine. Even while Maggie was studying business administration in college, Vanessa spent her days partying and dating. Still, her mother always defended Vanessa, constantly saying, "That girl has special talents." The phone rang, pulling Maggie from her thoughts. Looking at the screen, she saw Eleanor. Maggie hesitated for a moment before answering. "Good morning, Mom." "Maggie, did you get the invitation?" Eleanor's voice was bright and slightly domineering, as usual. "I just saw it." "Wonderful. The whole family is gathering to celebrate Vanessa's special day. You'll come, won't you?" It was more of a command than a question. "Of course," Maggie answered in a flat voice. "But work is hectic, so I'm planning to arrive in the morning and return at night." "Oh, nonsense. Stay overnight at home at least. Your bedroom is just as you left it." "Mom, I'm fine. I'll book a hotel." Eleanor sighed with displeasure on the other end of the phone. "Maggie, you're always work, work, work. If you're so busy, at least make sure you prepare a proper gift. Vanessa wants only the best for her baby." "I know, Mom." After the call ended, Maggie closed her eyes tiredly. Conversations with her mother always drained her energy. Outside, the snow continued to fall. That night, Maggie opened the door to the study at the back of her apartment. In stark contrast to the plain suits she usually wore, she was dressed in luxurious silk pajamas with a wineglass in hand. Upon entering the room, its lavish interior was astonishing. This study was a secret space hidden within what appeared to be a simple apartment. Wall-to-wall monitors displayed stock charts and news feeds. A wide glass desk held state-of-the-art computer systems. In one corner of the room stood a world map with red pins stuck in various cities. Maggie sat at the desk and opened her laptop. The screen displayed the words, "Reynolds Technologies Quarterly Report." She took a sip of wine and began typing. "Jason, list up new acquisition candidates. I'll be away next week, so don't contact me unless it's an emergency." The AI assistant's voice echoed through the room. "Understood. How are your preparations for the baby shower going?" Maggie smiled. "I'm preparing to put on a perfect performance for Mom and my sister." She opened a drawer in the desk and took out a small jewelry box. Inside was an extravagant diamond necklace. It was a wrapped gift with a card that read, "To Vanessa." Maggie gazed at it while quietly finishing her wine. The upscale country club in Lake Forest, Illinois, was a distinctive building with white columns and spacious windows. Maggie parked her car in the parking lot and checked her appearance in the mirror. Her simple yet high-quality navy dress created an understated elegance. She took a small box from her handbag and took a deep breath. Maggie, is that you? Eleanor was waiting at the entrance, dressed in a flashy pink dress, with her arms spread wide toward her daughter. In her 70s, she maintained a youthfulness that belied her age, with a perfectly arranged hairstyle and makeup. Mom. Maggie exchanged a formal hug. The strong scent of her mother's perfume stung her nose. You're late. Everyone's already here. You're the last one. Eleanor looked Maggie up and down, frowning slightly. Couldn't you have chosen something more colorful? This is a celebration, after all. Maggie said nothing and followed her mother to the venue. The private room, decorated for the baby shower, was adorned with pastel blue balloons and ribbons. In the center of the room, 8 months pregnant Vanessa sat like a queen. Big sis. Vanessa waved. She was wearing a blue maternity dress and looked younger than her 28 years. You finally made it. Maggie smiled and approached her sister. Congratulations, Vanessa. Here's a present. Maggie handed over the small box. When Vanessa opened it, a sparkling diamond necklace appeared. A sound of admiration rose from around the room. This is amazing. But it's not a present for the baby, Vanessa's voice contained mild reproach. I brought something for the baby too, Maggie said calmly. But I wanted to prepare something special for my sister who's becoming a mother. Eleanor interrupted. Maggie, let me introduce you to James. Vanessa's wonderful husband. James Williams was a tall man who gave a cool impression. When he shook hands with Maggie, his eyebrows furrowed slightly. Nice to meet you, Maggie. I've heard a lot about you from Vanessa. Hopefully good things, Maggie joked lightly. James tilted his head. Have we met somewhere before? You seem very familiar. No, Maggie answered quickly. I'm terrible at remembering faces. Perhaps you are too. James still looked puzzled, but Vanessa pulled his arm, and the conversation was interrupted. The party seemed to be progressing pleasantly. On the surface, at least. Maggie stood in the corner of the room with a glass in hand, observing the scene. James's parents were also in attendance, clearly wealthy and cultured people. Maggie, why are you standing alone? Eleanor approached again. Mingle more. You're always like this. You're still single because you lack social skills. Maggie took a deep breath. Mom, I'm busy with work. That's all. Work, work, always work, Eleanor waved her arm. What kind of work? Just an office job, right? You need to enjoy your life more. Look at Vanessa. A wonderful husband and a baby on the way. She's enjoying life more than you are. We all walk different paths, Mom. Yes. But yours is the wrong one. Eleanor said as she returned to the table. Maggie took a sip of wine. Memories from 20 years ago surfaced. The day 18-year-old Maggie was celebrating her college scholarship, Eleanor said, but this means you'll have to leave home. Meanwhile, when 11-year-old Vanessa fell during her ballet recital, her mother comforted her for a whole week. The day Maggie graduated college at the top of her class, Eleanor skipped the ceremony because Vanessa was in bed with a cold. And when she continued to graduate school, she was pressured with, "Isn't it about time you returned home to help the family?" The most painful memory was 1 year after her father George's death. Eleanor suddenly confessed financial difficulties and said, "Since you're working, you'll cover Vanessa's tuition, won't you?" Despite the fact that Maggie herself was managing her own tuition through scholarships and multiple part-time jobs. Big sis, what are you thinking about so deeply? Vanessa's voice brought Maggie back to reality. Her sister was standing next to her, cradling her large belly. Nothing. Are you enjoying the party? It's amazing. Vanessa said happily. By the way, I want to ask you something. Maggie tensed. This expression of Vanessa's was the one she made before making an unreasonable request. After the baby is born, I want to return to work right away. So, I'd like you to look after the baby a few days a week. Vanessa, I live in downtown Chicago and work late every day. That would be difficult. But we're sisters. We're family, right? Vanessa's eyes, as always, were confident that her demands would be met. The conversation was interrupted as Eleanor stood up with a microphone in hand. She faced the guests with a joyful expression. Everyone, thank you for gathering today to celebrate Vanessa and James's baby. The attendees applauded. Maggie quietly moved to the edge of the room and observed the situation. James looked in her direction, furrowing his brow again. He seemed to be trying to remember something. I have a special announcement, Eleanor continued. Her eyes sparkled. To commemorate this happy occasion, I'm announcing a surprise gift from the family. An unpleasant premonition ran through Maggie's chest. Eleanor's surprises were usually not good news for her. The room was wrapped in expectant silence, and Eleanor clutched the microphone with a broad smile. Her face showed the excitement of making a big announcement. Dear friends, she infused emotion into her voice. The Reynolds family has always valued family bonds. As Vanessa reaches this wonderful time of becoming a mother, our family has decided to provide special support. Maggie felt her stomach sink. Her mother's tone had put her in difficult situations many times before. You see, childbirth involves many expenses. The best medical care, postnatal care, and everything for the baby is necessary, Eleanor continued. And today, we have wonderful news. Eleanor glanced at Maggie for a moment. There was expectation and something commanding in her eyes. Maggie's body tensed with tension. Her sister will cover the childbirth expenses. Eleanor's words echoed through the room. Maggie couldn't believe her ears. She hadn't promised anything. She hadn't been consulted at all. People in the room looked at her, smiling and beginning to give small applause. Slowly, Maggie stood up. Her legs were shaking. As her silence lengthened, she felt the atmosphere in the room changing. No, Maggie said quietly but clearly. Then she shook her head. The room fell silent. Eleanor's smile froze. Maggie, stop joking, Eleanor said in a low voice, but the words were heard throughout the room through the microphone. I'm not joking, Mom, Maggie's voice was calm. You didn't consult me about anything. Don't make assumptions on your own. Eleanor's face changed in an instant. The smile disappeared, and anger surfaced. She quickly put the microphone aside and walked toward Maggie. Why do you always have to spoil the family's important moments? Eleanor's voice was low but trembling with anger. Maggie also took a step forward. I'm not spoiling anything. I'm just saying, don't count on my wallet without asking. Well, my goodness. Eleanor's eyes widened. That a wallet is just a salary from an office job, isn't it? It's not such a big deal. For family, you could make a little sacrifice. It's not about money, Mom, Maggie said quietly. It's about you always deciding things without my consent. Trying to control my life. The surrounding guests were uncomfortably averting their eyes. James's parents huddled together, whispering something. Is helping your family so distasteful to you? Eleanor's voice grew louder. Don't you love Vanessa? Don't you have any affection for the baby that's coming? This isn't about affection. Yes, it's about money. You've always been stingy, Eleanor's voice trembled. Always thinking only of yourself. Always work, work. What kind of work is it anyway? Just a mirror. "Mom, that's enough," Maggie said. "I'm leaving." As she turned to get her bag, something unexpected happened. Eleanor lunged forward and slapped Maggie's cheek. The sound of the slap echoed through the room, and guests gasped in shock. Maggie's cheek reddened, and she stared at her mother in disbelief. A torrent of emotions, suppressed for decades, welled up inside her. "Mom," Maggie said in a trembling voice. "Get out," Eleanor said through gritted teeth. "I don't need a daughter who shames her family." Maggie looked around the room with a hurt expression. Most people were averting their eyes, but only James was staring at her. His expression showed understanding and sympathy. At that moment, a new voice intervened. Vanessa stood up with a cold smile. "Still stingy even though you don't have children to enjoy life with?" Her sister's voice was filled with mockery and contempt. "Always putting work first, big sis." But with nothing to show for it. Tears welled up in Maggie's eyes. For a long time, she had lived under the expectations and pressure of her family. She had hidden her true self, pretending to be an ordinary office worker on the surface while secretly building an empire. It was precisely to protect herself from moments like this. Maggie choked on her words. At that moment, an unexpected helping hand was extended. James stood next to Vanessa and placed his hand on his wife's shoulder. His expression was stern and determined. "That's enough, Vanessa," his voice was quiet but authoritative. "Eleanor, this is going too far." Eleanor looked at James with angry eyes. "This is a family matter. You should stay out of it." "No, I cannot silently watch my wife insult someone else," James replied calmly. "Especially if you don't know who she really is." Tension hung in the room. Vanessa looked up at her husband with a confused expression. "What are you talking about?" James stared at Maggie intently, then whispered something in his wife's ear. "Do you know who she really is?" Vanessa's eyes widened. She looked at her husband in disbelief, then shifted her gaze to Maggie. Maggie stood frozen. The moment had come for her long-kept secret to be revealed. She met James's eyes and saw sympathy and respect there. He knew. But how? "I'm leaving," Maggie said quietly. She crossed the room toward the door. "Maggie, wait." James called out. "You should tell everyone the truth." Maggie turned and gazed at James for a long time. Then she shook her head slightly. "Now is not the time." "Then perhaps I should tell them?" James's voice had a challenging tone. Eleanor interrupted. "What are you talking about? Are you saying Maggie has some secret?" James hesitated for a moment but seemed to have made up his mind. He led Vanessa and Eleanor to a corner of the room. "There's something you should know," his voice was low but clear. "And after you hear it, you'll probably deeply regret your actions today." James guided Eleanor and Vanessa to a small alcove in the corner of the room. Maggie stood at a distance, sensing that James's parents were watching the scene with concern. The other guests, bewildered by the previous scene, resumed their conversations in hushed tones. "What are you going to talk about?" Vanessa said, not hiding her irritation. Her eyes were red, and her face was contorted with anger. "Maggie ruined my special day." "Please listen quietly," James's voice was low and calm. He took out his smartphone and opened some screen. "Your sister may appear to be just a company employee on the surface. But in reality..." He showed his smartphone to Eleanor. The screen displayed an article from Forbes magazine. Along with a photo of Maggie in a business suit, a large headline danced across the page. Reynolds Technologies CEO Margaret Reynolds selected as the $3 billion woman. The blood drained from Eleanor's face. "What, this is..." Maggie is the founder and CEO of Reynolds Technologies, James explained quietly. She established the company 10 years ago and is now a businesswoman with assets of over $3 billion. I knew because I'm in the tech industry, but I didn't realize she was Vanessa's sister. Today, it finally connected. Vanessa stood with her mouth open, at a loss for words. Her hands began to tremble. Lies, they're lies. They're not lies, James continued. She's a legendary figure in the industry. She built the company from scratch with her own technical talent and innovative vision. And she did it with hardly any investment. Eleanor scrolled through the smartphone with trembling fingers. The article stated, Margaret Reynolds is known for rarely appearing in public and being extremely wary about her private life. It also mentioned the artificial intelligence technology she founded is currently revolutionizing every industry. Her company is also a key technology partner for the company I work for, James added. Actually, our partnership with her company was announced last week. I was really surprised when I realized she was Vanessa's sister. Vanessa snatched the phone from her husband and desperately read through the article. Her expression visibly changed to fear and regret. Why didn't she tell us? Eleanor's voice was trembling. Probably for this reason, James gestured to indicate the earlier scene. I witnessed for the first time today how you treat her. But hasn't this been going on for years? Eleanor's face turned completely white. She turned to look at her daughter, seeing Maggie standing quietly. Maggie. Eleanor called out in a trembling voice. Maggie slowly approached. Her face mixed sadness with determination. You didn't have to tell them, James. I thought they had a right to know, James said. And my parents saw everything. They are. He turned and looked at his parents. Richard and Martha Williams were clearly disturbed. Richard was known as a strict person who worked as a lawyer, and Martha was a pillar of society. James, what is this about? Richard asked his son. His voice mixed disappointment and anger. Your wife's family is. Dad, please stop, James raised his hand. Martha walked toward Eleanor. Eleanor, you slapped your own daughter. And for what reason? Simply because she refused to give you money. And that daughter turns out to be a giant in the tech industry? Eleanor appeared speechless. Tears began to overflow from her eyes. I didn't know. Are you saying you would have treated her differently if you had known? Maggie asked quietly. Her voice contained years of pain. That's why I kept it a secret. I knew that once you and Vanessa learned of my success, your attitudes would change. Vanessa suddenly rushed toward Maggie. Her face showed fear and pleading. Sis, I'm sorry. We didn't know. If we had known. If you had known, what? Maggie's voice was cold. You would have been kinder because you wanted my money? Is that what family means? The place fell silent. James's parents clearly showed their discomfort. James, Richard called his son. We'll take our leave. There are things I want to discuss tomorrow. James nodded. His expression was serious. I understand, Dad. As the Williams couple was leaving, Martha stopped in front of Maggie. Ms. Reynolds, I think today has been a difficult day for you. If you'd like, would you give us the opportunity to talk at our home sometime? Maggie smiled slightly and nodded. Thank you, Mrs. Williams. After James's parents left, the atmosphere in the room changed completely. Most of the guests also began to leave one after another, eager to escape this uncomfortable situation. Eleanor collapsed into a chair. Maggie, why didn't you tell us? Would it have made any difference? Maggie asked matter-of-factly. To you, I was always the second daughter. You never tried to see my success, my effort, nothing. That's not true. Eleanor protested, but there was no strength in her voice. Really? Maggie smiled. When I graduated from college, you didn't come to the ceremony. When I succeeded in my first business venture, you called it a little hobby. And today, you counted on my wallet and decided on your own without any consultation. Vanessa started crying. Sis, we just. Save the excuses, Maggie said tiredly. I'm going home now. James stopped her. Maggie, please let me talk to you for a moment. The two went outside the room. In the hallway, James said with a serious expression, I'm sorry for revealing your secret. But seeing their attitude, I couldn't remain silent. You did the right thing, James, Maggie replied. I knew the time would come to tell the truth someday. I just didn't want it to be like this. There's one more thing I need to tell you, James lowered his voice. I'm reconsidering my relationship with my wife. After seeing her attitude today, and witnessing how her family operates. Maggie was surprised. James, that's. I have to think about the baby, he said seriously. I can't raise a child in this kind of home environment. I'm thinking of consulting a lawyer. Maggie was at a loss for words. She never imagined that the revelation of her secret would affect her sister's marriage in this way. But in a sense, she understood. It was natural for an honest person like James to question Vanessa and Eleanor's attitudes. Whatever you do, think carefully, Maggie advised. For the baby's sake too. James nodded. Thank you, Maggie. You're an amazing woman. I'm truly sorry about this incident. Maggie smiled quietly. Today isn't the end. It might be a new beginning. 6 months later, the marble hallway of the Chicago family court reflected the morning light. Maggie Reynolds, dressed in a black silk suit, came out of the courtroom. Her back was straight, her expression calm, but complex emotions dwelled in her eyes. Maggie. Turning around, James Williams was standing there. His parents stood beside him. All three had expressions of relief. I think the verdict was fair, James said. Maggie nodded. Yes. During the past 5 months, Maggie's life had changed dramatically. After that shocking baby shower, she finally acknowledged her identity in public and stepped onto the stage as the CEO of Reynolds Technologies. As he had announced, James filed for divorce from Vanessa, and a trial was held over custody of their newborn son, Jonathan. Today, the court handed down its final judgment. Primary custody was given to James, with Vanessa granted visitation rights every other week. One of the reasons for the verdict cited Vanessa's unstable emotional control and lack of respect for others. During the trial, Maggie stood as a witness and told the truth about her relationship with her sister. How's Jonathan? Maggie asked. He's with my mother. Would you like to see him? Maggie smiled. I'd love to. Down the hall, Vanessa was talking with her lawyer. She looked thin and pale. When her eyes met Maggie's, she seemed to flinch for a moment, but quickly looked away. Eleanor was not present. Last month, she had moved into a nursing home in Chicago. The truth Maggie revealed and the subsequent developments had dealt a heavy blow to her mental state. Vanessa could no longer maintain Eleanor's apartment and had to sell it. Now both of them were in financially difficult situations. Maggie followed James into the waiting room. Martha Williams was holding a small baby. 2-month-old Jonathan was sleeping with a peaceful expression. Would you like to hold him? Martha asked gently. Maggie hesitated but held out her arms. Holding the baby, a warm feeling spread in her chest. Hello, Jonathan. He's fortunate to have an aunt like you, James said. A strong and caring woman. Maggie touched the baby's soft cheek. I'm fortunate to meet him too. Would you like to join us for dinner? Richard suggested. Today is a day to celebrate. Thank you, I will. On her way out, Maggie took one last look at Vanessa. Her sister was sitting alone on a bench in the courtroom. For a moment, their eyes met. After a long silence, Maggie slowly approached. Vanessa. What? Vanessa's voice was hard. Jonathan needs a proper mother. If you need help, just say so. Vanessa looked up in surprise. Tears welled up in her eyes. Why would you help me? After what I did. Maggie smiled quietly. Because you're my sister. And Jonathan is my nephew. She gently placed her hand on Vanessa's shoulder. Let's learn what true family means from now on. Maggie joined James and his parents, leaving the courtroom with newly formed bonds. Her life was moving in a direction she had never anticipated, but for the first time, she felt the freedom to live as her true self.